Ritchie Torres on his show. He's just had a bunch of different interviews that seem to come out of nowhere, including one that was pretty hilarious with Anthony Weiner.
Chris Cuomo.
But the latest one here is Ritchie Torres, obviously a member of Congress who has become notorious for taking a lot of AIPAC money and being a vociferous defender of Israel's genocide in Gaza, and speaking with a lot of authority about what Jewish people care about, anti-Semitic, and what is hateful towards Jews and what is not. Adam Friedland is a Jewish man, and here sits across from Ritchie Torres, and like, I know that it seems like what Adam was saying when he posted about this was that he had mixed feelings about this interview because he was very vulnerable. I think it's really awesome that he was and showed, you know, courage to put yourself out there in this way, to speak about his experience of being indoctrinated into Zionism and having gone to Israel and what the process was like to extricate himself from that. I always think that's valuable when people talk about it. And what I think the best part of what came out of this interview was that Torres looks like a sociopath, and he looks immensely vapid and callous and corrupt.
What's that word
and
mean?
For my money, that's a pretty good outcome because that's kind of the reality. So here is an excerpt from that interview talking about Israel.
You're being a dick. That's mean.
No, go back a little bit if that's okay. Maybe like 30 seconds. This is perfect.
The world saw the Holocaust, and they established standards for what a genocide is. It was the same year. And the world said that this shouldn't be a thing that happens. You know?
Pause.
One thing, I'm sorry. Well, she paused right when I paused. But, so he said something afterwards. He said, the one thing he didn't like about this interview, he came out looking like as a mush. You know, looking a little too squishy. I don't think so. Like, I think he showed the right amount of emotion compared to this fucking ghoul over here who's taking millions of AIPAC money. I think he definitely looks better than that. And it's an emotional fucking... You should be emotional about it. You shouldn't be okay with seeing images of starving families and starving kids. You shouldn't see... Well, you should get emotional about seeing kids, you know, having to... You know, 3-year-old have bottles of water, you know, on each shoulder so they have to go get clean water for their family. You shouldn't be used to, you know, bombs and mutilated bodies and all that stuff that's happening in Gaza, right? You shouldn't look like this when you're talking about it to a Jewish man who's telling you, I don't like that my country is doing this to another country. If the USA were doing this to another country, I would be fucking rioting, okay? Like, nah, no lie, no joke, no fucking around, like, nah. Like, you're not going to use our military, our military men and women to kill their percentage of civilians that they've killed out of the 65,000 or whatever, 85,000 is 92%. 92% of the deaths in Gaza have been civilians. If I'm right, I think I'm in my head and right. Doesn't that mean 1 out of the 10 deaths? 1 out of the 10 deaths was Hamas militants. The other 9 civilians. Like, either you're doing it on purpose or you're really, really fucking shitty, okay? So I'm pretty sure it's the fucking first part.
Briefly, we don't need to take it off the screen, but he's referring to 1948, basically saying that the standards for what constitutes a genocide and the same year that the State of Israel was founded, it happened at the same year.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me, what, I don't know, it doesn't track to me why there's this fixation with kids at a school that and 2 examples of people at a restaurant that there was banging.
2 examples. I mean, there are surveys on it.
Give me the.
Read the EDL survey.
Read the surveys. Read the EDL surveys. What?
Surveys on it. Because
It's hard for me to talk about this in public
clearly,
because
I mean,
you're being big. That's mean.
No, I'm not being mean. I'm just clear it's an emotional topic.
All right, I'll share with you what happened.
I'm not.
I lived there.
I don't intend to be mean. So.
Sir, I lived there when I was 18, and I grew up a Zionist. And we were told, and our whole community in this country is told, that we have to defend Israel and love Israel because it'll stop the Holocaust. It will stop another Holocaust from happening. And my dad was born in 1951. That was 6 years after these atrocities. His friends' parents, he knew these people that had been through this hell, these skeletons. And it terrified us. And the understanding in our community is that we have to defend Israel.
So it never happens again.
I lived there, and I went to a settlement at the end of my year there, and I looked down the hill at a Palestinian village, and I saw how they lived, and I turned back and I looked at the settlement and saw how they lived. And people live in a world where they're demeaned and dehumanized and surveilled constantly by people and this isn't.
Look at how he's actually breathing, though. He definitely had a reaction to hearing that. But then he goes on to his TV mode. He goes AIPAC mode.
In Gaza, by people in SWAT team outfits with semi-automatic weapons, and that's what the world is seeing.
And this is before October 7th.
And you keep telling me that the problem is someone's getting yelled at a restaurant? I'm sorry.
You're conflating 2 different issues. So I don't
Please. Me saying this to you right now will hurt people in my own family, okay? Because this is a very important thing to us. And the fact that I still fucking care about being Jewish is embarrassing. I should just be a guy. But this feels like a stain on our history.
It is. It's a stain on everybody's history. It's a stain for the rest of our life. This is going to go down in history as one of the most publicized and covered up travesties in history. Like, it's so gross. And like he's emotional because he's like, they're doing it in my name. They're doing it for me. They're doing it for the Jewish people. Like, that's so gross.
And it feels like it's changed what being Jewish.
If they said they were doing that to Gaza in the United States of America, we wouldn't bet it.
Is. Because what being Jewish is isn't Israel. Judaism has existed for 4,000 years.
Judaism has 4,000 years.
This is a country for 75 years. You know, like, it is the oldest, one of the oldest monotheistic religions. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hatred. People in my life are going to be mad at me about this, but I'm saying this because I am Jewish.
Yeah, and seeing what happened to them during the Holocaust, being inflicted, I would say worse and with modern technology to them in Gaza, is fucking horrific. And it shouldn't be done in anybody's name. It shouldn't be done in a religious name. It shouldn't be done for state, government. No, we don't need to be doing this to people. Like, we definitely 9 out of 10 fucking deaths are civilians. That's not how you do this. We just need it to stop. Jesus.
You know, and I don't understand why you would be.
Look how you define.
I want to.
I feel like I'm here to be lectured, not.
Shut up. That's not nice. You can't talk that way. Why are one set of Jews but more important than others?
No one's saying any.
What happened? You went to the beach in Israel?
You went to the beach
to a restaurant or something?
No.
A nice restaurant?
No.
Like
A nice restaurant.
All right. Let's pause it now because that's one excerpt. But
Wow,
Brian has a theory about this. I don't want to put you on the spot about this, but
there's some back context. When this was Come Town, before it was the Adam Friedland show, Adam always talked about getting sucked off on his trip to Israel. They made fun of him for that all the time, but that's like a move. And I think
it's a part of the recruitment grooming process.
And I think Richie Torres
got some, well,
overlooking the Mediterranean in a condo.
Must be beautiful. Later in the interview, he brings up gratuitously Tel Aviv Pride out of nowhere, which is just another way that Westerners get sold on the idea that like Israel is this egalitarian place, because they have pride parades there, although you can't legally get married in Israel if you're a gay person. Let's leave that alone for a second. So it was informative to see how Torres bought into that, and how it seems like he was on an Israel trip when he was really young. Richie grew up
24 years old.
24. Richie grew up like in a lot of poverty. And you go like, we get flooded with this amount of money where AIPAC is like, we will basically secure your place in power or for X period of time with our unlimited funds. You can get to the dance. If you're a guy like Torres who doesn't seem to have a lot of scruples, you sign up.
Who's plucked out of poverty and joined a mafia.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's our political system.
Yeah. But I mean,
Adam Friedland is actually a pretty earnest guy. I've been a fan of his since Come Town was using the Home Improvement theme song as an intro. We had him on the Michael Brooks show 6 years ago talking about, and I believe an I-24 interview that he was similar to this, sort of embarrassed about it. He didn't really want to talk about it, and then when posting this, he said they weren't sure if they're going to release it. The trouble is he was too earnest for what is a complete psychopath. I think that shows to people. Like Richie Torres is like, when you say the word buy in, he's bought. Like he would not be there. We would not know who Richie Torres is unless he was willing to justify everything that Zionists want justified, and nothing that they don't. And to the extent that he will ever break with Israel, he has permission to, because it's untenable.
Also, I think, you do Richie Torres and people like him too many favors when you even insinuate that they care about Jewish people or Jewish people being safe. And that's not what Adam Friedland was doing. And I think that was a very powerful clip, because he was obviously very vulnerable. And like, it's important to hear about these experiences and how people, extricate themselves from these sorts of ways of thinking. But Richie Torres, most Zionists, like their care for Jewish people is more about the care for the power that invoking Jewish people's identity and like that collective. And, in the case of the Holocaust, that collective tragedy and trauma has allowed them to wield within our political system. And it's not just the Jewish identity. You see this across the board with the way in which a lot of our political parties engage with identity. It's not about the people. It's about the power that you can garner from co-opting people's story, co-opting people's tragedy. And then, once it's no longer politically useful, they jettison them. Like, I have no doubt that once, being really, really pro-Israel, being really, really like evocatively anti-Semitic is no longer valuable to Trump or no longer valuable to the Democrats, you won't hear anything about it. And the anti-Semitism that has arose as a result of their actions will be something that they don't take responsibility for. They have no solution for. They'll maybe go on TV and chastise people about it, but there'll be no structural solution or acknowledgement of how we got to this point or their role in getting to this point.
Yeah, and Adam touches on this too, where his assertion is the correct one, which is that the people committing genocide are waving a Jewish star around, and that is contributing a lot more to anti-Semitism than to the people protesting it. This was another part that I found, I sent the codes in our chat. This was another part that I found to be fascinating. They're going back and forth here, speaking about phrases like from the river to the sea and Hamas's intentions with the state of Israel. And you see how Torres uses the Hebron massacre to basically justify the Nakba, which he doesn't acknowledge in the clip. And Friedman kind of calls him out on it. So this was another part that I thought was good.
They didn't have to fucking move because black people could vote. And
talking
He
about
said,
South
tell
Africa.
your kids to come back because we need them to build our country. I don't know. I think that I don't see what's wrong with people being afforded the right to vote.
Do you think that's what Hamas means when it says free Palestine from the river to the sea?
To me, it seems like maybe if there's a recognition that people were cleared off their land in 1948,
But there are those
and
who only want a Jewish state, and there are those who only want a Palestinian state,
then they could fuck off.
and we should be advocating for the coexistence of a Jewish state and a Palestinian state.
Why can't you
I continue to believe the two-state solution ultimately is the inevitable path forward. That is my.
It's stupid.
You know, there were
Yeah.
there were 1,000 Jews who were murdered before the establishment of Israel, like a half a century before the establishment of Israel.
Bruh, how many
1,000.
Palestinians were murdered in that video? But you think they get them and then oh yeah. I think LGBTQ would be a better example of that. They're like, oh yeah, I support LGBTQ, but then when it's like not in fashion anymore, it's like, actually, you know what? I don't like that there's two moms in a Disney movie. Two moms and a kid in a Disney movie? Can't have that. No, that's too far and everything. I think that's a better example. What this guy's doing is just following the money, bro. Like, he's making money off AIPAC. And so he's gonna. Oh, I get it. I get it. But yeah. So AIPAC AIPAC is just the Jewish money going to Jewish money going to our politicians so they protect Israel. I don't know why that we allow this. I don't know why this is a thing. I don't know.
Jews
Yeah, they were killing each other, Jews and Palestinians. Yeah,
the Hebron massacre.
it doesn't make sense to me. This in 2025.
The only point was there was violence against Jews before the establishment of the state of Israel.
There's violence against Palestinians.
I mean, sorry, can we just say like the establishment of the state of Israel was more than just a brief moment where England's like, hey, here's Israel. There was a Zionist settlement process going on for the decades ahead of it. Like Rashid Khalidi's 100-year war of Palestine isn't called the 75 years war on Palestine for a fucking reason.
Yeah, this
Also,
was.
there is no.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say there are no other examples where like America or American politicians would apply this logic to any other group that has had violence committed against them by colonial powers, by even like coexisting powers within their own region. They would never accept like inter-ethnic group like concentration camps in parts of Eastern Europe. I mean, they maybe would depending on who was in charge, but you know what I mean? Like the argument that they're making for this is entirely predicated on it being in service of the United States war machine, and of course our NATO allies in Europe. But like it wouldn't apply to Native Americans doing it, to white people in America, black people doing it. It's the kind of logic that like you can use to like kind of convince liberals that this fascism has like a liberal bent to it, but it falls apart when you look at any other example of like how we treat minority groups or what we think that they deserve around the world.
Right. And I'm reading here from the Jewish Virtual Library talking about the Hebron massacre, and this is their read of it. Hebron had up until
Labor
this
Day
time
protest.
been outwardly
Hold
peaceful, though the
on,
tensions hid
hold
below the
on.
surface. The Sephardi Jewish community in Hebron had lived quietly with its Arab neighbors for centuries. These are Jews, as they reference, who were originally from Spain, North Africa, and Arab countries.
How is that
These
possible if Islam is inherently violent?
Right. These Sephardi Jews spoke Arabic and had a cultural connection with the Arabs in Hebron. In the mid-1800s, Ashkenazi native European Jews started moving to Hebron, and in 1925, the Slobodka Yeshiva, officially called the Yeshiva of Hebron Knesset Israel Slobodka, was opened. Yeshiva students live separately, and basically it becomes a clash between Zionist immigrants, as they write, and their Arab neighbors. They are acknowledging that there were Jews that were living there, the Sephardi Jewish community, that lived peacefully with their Arab neighbors. But once Zionism started, that's when tensions and that's when violence began to become more frequent, because the settlements were acts of violence and there were obviously tensions and there was resistance.
It's the nationalism, stupid.
So this is using that
Like,
to
what
justify
the
basically
fuck?
the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in 1948. Go ahead, Brandon.
And also, he's still justifying it now. And evoking the two-state solution is just a stalling tactic. It's meant to stall because the two-state solution is something that nominally only one side of this conflict has been working on for the entire time it's been talked about. That's Palestinians, and it's been disrupted by the U.S. and Israel. Are not that those are two different entities, but the U.S.-Israeli complex has been disrupting that talk because it's not what Israel wants in the region. The settlements are an example of that. They've been very open about not wanting it because they view a two-state solution as unacceptable, and they view the alternative, which is the more likely scenario of what will happen now that they've been doing their genocide, a one-state solution where it's not a Jewish ethno state, as the same thing as losing their country. And that is just the white supremacy, the analog.
All right. One thing I want to get into before I get off is the double tap that happened. It's really gross. IDF's double tap, yeah. We're gonna do Sky News. We'll do Sky News. Why not?
Nasser Hospital is the only functioning hospital left in the south of Gaza. On the morning of the 25th of August, it was targeted by the Israeli military.
So here we are, 2025, nearly 2 years after October 7th, and they're still attacking hospitals, okay?
And then again, less than 10 minutes later. That's a tactic known as a double tap, and it's widely regarded as a war crime. Speaking to the Security Council, the Palestinian envoy to the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, claimed it was no accident that Israel had attacked twice.
The second strike on Nasser's hospital was a premeditated strike on medics and journalists who arrived at the scene after the first strike. This is not a war. These are atrocities committed against an entire civilian population.
At around 9 minutes past 10 a.m. local time, the first Israeli strike hit a camera on top of the Nasser hospital. That is the hospital's 4th floor. Hussam al-Masri, who worked as a cameraman for Reuters,
And they're saying that they were targeting that camera because that camera could be used by Hamas to relay positions to snipers.
died in this strike. Over the past few months, multiple journalists have been seen filming in the same location. It was a spot that was frequently used by media workers as a hub for internet connectivity, taking advantage of the strong signal to upload material and maintain communications. Medics and other journalists could be seen rushing to the scene to help after that first explosion. Then, around 8 minutes later, at 10:17 a.m., a second Israeli strike hits the same area. This was all captured on the Al-Qad TV live stream. This video, filmed from the ground, shows a projectile travelling towards the hospital and then hitting the top of the hospital stairs. Milliseconds later, a second projectile hits the hospital, meters away from where the building was first struck. Analysis from the defense intelligence company Janes says that the video
Probably bought and paid for by the United States of America too. Whatever they hit him with.
shows precision-guided missiles fired from either a helicopter
Precision guided missiles from the United States of America.
or else multiple tanks. The journalists killed in this strike were Mariam Abu Dhaka, a freelancer for the Associated Press and other outlets, Mohammed Salama, who worked for Al Jazeera.
Bro, we make our shit here. Lockney. It's a military company. It supplies like 90% of the world's fucking bombs and shit.
Moaz Abu Taha, a freelance journalist who worked with several news organizations, including Reuters, and Ahmed Abu Aziz. In total, 22 people were killed, including other medics and health workers. Data from Air Wars, which monitors civilian harm, indicates that so-called double tap strikes have been happening in Gaza since the start of the conflict, so this isn't something new.
the level of intensity of the bombardment is just not the same. I mean, we can't talk about it even in the same sort of breath as other conflicts that we've seen in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, this aerial campaign where it's multiple incidents a day, multiple residential buildings. I mean, it's the nature of that campaign is just so different that when you start to even dig into things like double taps or even patterns of attacks on aid distribution, anything, I mean, you're looking at something that is just simply incomparable in terms of scale and intensity.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday called the incident a tragic mishap. The Israeli military has confirmed that its troops did attack Nasser Hospital and claims they targeted an observation camera being used to track IDF movements. The camera on the roof was struck, but it was actually being operated from a journalist from the news agency Reuters. And was broadcasting a live stream at the time.
When the hospital was struck the first time, it was journalist Hussam al-Masri who was targeted and killed. He was the only one on that floor in that moment.
The camera was not newly installed. It had been positioned there earlier by our colleague to live stream events in Khan Yunis.
The IDF said the journalist wasn't a target. They named 6 so-called terrorists killed in this attack, including a man called Omar Abu Taim. We've seen evidence that he fought against Israeli troops, but our evidence suggests he may have died days earlier. When asked by Sky News, the IDF did not explain why they struck the building a second time during rescue efforts. Nasser Hospital told us it categorically rejects these claims and any claims made by Israeli authorities to justify attacks on hospital premises.
Why is this happening? Why are we doing this?
For more on this, I'm joined from Tunis by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese. Francesca, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate that. Following today's deadly attack on Al Nasser Hospital, you are calling on states to take immediate action to halt the carnage in Gaza. What more can global leaders do? And in your opinion, are they failing the Palestinian people?
Thank you, Liane. I don't see member states doing enough. No single state has done enough to stop the carnage in Gaza. I learned from you and from the coverage that was just passed that Israel has recognized that it was an Israeli missile that hit Nasser Hospital, killing 15 people, including reporters and rescuers. Look, this is an attack that has been filmed and could not be denied, but in fact there have been hundreds and hundreds of those instances, many of them filmed in fact. Some are notorious, some are not. And Israel has killed 60,000 people by its own admission, because there is an Israeli army leaked paper that confirms, and this was circulated by Israeli media 972, confirms that Israel has killed so only 1 out of 6 of the people killed by Israel since October 2023 are so-called Hamas combatants, and we know that what Israel defines as combatants is much broader than combatant under international law. Israel knows exactly what it's doing and how many civilians are being killed, and it does so amid members of the cabinet calling for the cleansing of Gaza, for emptying Gaza of Palestinians, and forcing the voluntary migration of Palestinians into other places of the world. So there is an ethnic cleansing ongoing, and genocide is being the means to enforce it in Gaza.
And I think it's important for us to note that the Israeli government says that it regrets any harm from the strike at Al Nasser Hospital today, and also that it is not committing genocide inside of Gaza. But, you know, we're seeing journalists today, and Gaza is saying that we don't target journalists and an initial inquiry will be carried out. But what do you make of Israel's comments? Are they purposely trying to get the reality of what's happening in Gaza not being told to the rest of the world?
I think that Israel lies and lies and lies, and it's not because of this instance that I believe it. Israel was forced to recognize and to express regret for what's happening because it was broadcasted. This attack happened while it was being reported, and this is why it was not possible. I mean, there was an attempt by some members of the army to say that it was not attributable to Israel, but again, it was too blatant to be denied. But the point is, you know, Liane, if we were on October 9 or 10 of 2023, I would understand this claim. But 60,000 people plus dead, and with a famine ongoing in Gaza, which risks to kill 500,000 people, and with the fact that the very Israeli army knows that of the 60,000 people killed, only 1 of 6 was a combatant. And this is something that I and other special rapporteurs have said since the beginning. 70% of the victims have always been women and children. So when you ask me if I believe that Israel regrets what it has done, no, I don't. And even if it does it allow Israel to stop its assault on Gaza and its attempt to empty Gaza of Palestinians? No, of course. And what is going on in the West Bank? How do we explain the fact that Israel is pushing the annexation of the little that remains that is not controlled by Israel of the West Bank? There is secular violence that is tormenting Palestinian doctors. What about the rape of...
We're gonna pause this, found a protest. I'm gonna make some free Palestine signs for the protest, okay? We're definitely gonna speak out.